Okay, I suggest that we start. And I think once people hear us and see us discussing this very important topic here, they will start coming. That's generally my experience as well with afternoon sessions. So welcome everyone. There's been quite a lot of focus here at this conference, obviously, to the topics of sustainability and responsible gambling. We want to kind of bring them together today and talk about the evolution of the concepts around responsible gambling towards sustainability indeed. My name is Eva Bakun. I'm part of the Clarion gaming team, the team that brings ICE gaming to you every year in February in London, but then starting from next year in Barcelona. And as part of ICE also, we obviously have a lot of focus on those themes as well through Consumer Protection Zone, which we have rebranded to Sustainable Gambling Zone. So that's me. I'm going to actually let our panelists to introduce themselves and as part of that introduction perhaps talk about what they have found within the last 2 years as kind of the most exciting development within that area of responsible gambling. And hopefully that will also give you a little bit more on the kind of context and background where they're coming from. So let's start with Pieter. So
It
Pieter,
works?
yes.
At least. Okay, so I'm very old, 35 years in the responsible gambling business, doing trading, e-consults, and accreditation and certification projects. I think that's it as a kind of introduction. What I have seen in the past couple of years is that the focus is more and more on problem gambling and problems that go with it, especially on a political and regulatory level, so to say. And you can see that as well in all these advertising and marketing restrictions that are taking place nowadays. But what I would like to see, and that's what I'm working on, is that we should have a focus on positive play.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, Francesco, now I'll pass on.
Yeah, listening to myself in the headset is weird. Sorry, Ben and Bill, you need the headset to. Yeah, it's there. Okay, you said one sentence, right? Yeah, I know. Okay, I've been around for 17 years, 9 years as a regulator here in Italy. Now I work for Playtech. I define myself like a chief responsible gambling evangelist within the company. So I'm in charge of all the responsible/safer gambling activities that we at Playtech, which is one of the largest gambling suppliers, do every day. Yeah, I'd say having put together clinical psychologists, a couple of gambling companies, a supplier, ourselves, and try to build over the next 5 years a framework of interventions, nudges, personalized RG tools that will be scientifically proven to work in terms of preventing gambling harm. It's a long, complex challenge, but it can really revolutionize the way we protect players.
Okay, so speaking of, let's go to the next, to the other Francesco, the panel, since you're holding the microphone.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Francesco Gaziano. I'm been working in this market, so in the gambling market, for 15 years now. I've been the CMO of big companies, and both national and international. National being in Italy, and international, obviously. And my focus has always been on the entertainment part of the gaming, and now I'm working on in DigitalEjis. My company has developed the first software that can predict the onset of gambling addiction before single bet is placed. And the thing I've seen that is changing is the impact of neuroscience and the impact of artificial intelligence and the improvements that they can bring in this world.
Cool, thank you. And I think there was a panel beforehand as well that talked about this specifically, but let's see to what extent we can also talk about that. And Stefano.
Hi, I'm Stefano Fregoni, and I'm CEO of FilsGame, a company operating in platform and software developments and content developments in different jurisdictions. And what I've seen in the past 2 years is more attention from operators at any level regarding tools and activities related to this topic, and from a content perspective, an interest in adding more and more social features as a positive way to bring this topic to the attention to the player and to create a different and positive revenue stream.
Right, thank you. So I think what we've heard is that you have all heard and seen and experienced kind of really an evolution when it comes to attitudes of the industry towards responsible gambling and standards. And I wanted to actually maybe look now at the language that we use in reference to those themes. We have talked about problem gambling, gambling harm. We've talked about prevention, responsible gambling. You know, at some point, British regulator came up with that notion of, or the name of the safe and gambling, which is very much what is now being used in the UK, and now possibly going into sustainable gambling. Francesco, Rodano, can you comment on that? And what does it actually mean, and whether you see that change of language being reflective of those trends as well?
Okay, thank you. No, this is fascinating, actually. The way we define this varies a lot in every country, in every historical phase. So UK now is safer gambling. But if you ask Bill from the US, safer gambling doesn't say anything. Safer is an adjective associated to other activities in general. But this evolution of the language, despite being different by country, and in Italy we don't even say gambling, we say gaming. But there's some trends anyway. Most importantly, there's a shift between player protection being something left to the individual players to manage. You know, gamble responsibly, drink responsibly. So you, player, have to operate in that way. It's up to you. Finally, because that evidently didn't work, now there's way more responsibility, especially in mature markets, on the role of the gambling companies to proactively support the players, intervene when necessary. And the second trend is that there's a shift between the way of protecting players by imposing some limits or thresholds that are the same for everybody, or advertising bans, like in Italy, to a more personalized approach. And then data has been discussed earlier, also offers a massive opportunity to analyze the behavior of individual players, find the individual risk markers that explain why a player could be at risk of suffering from gambling harm, and intervene in a personalized way. So we are moving, fortunately, because it has the potential to be way more effective, to a truly personalized approach, and a lot with the use of AI.
And from what I mean, my understanding from what I have heard from the Gambling Commission, UK Gambling Commission, was indeed that evolution from responsible gambling to safer gambling was kind of moving the responsibility from the individual into the industry or into the operator, right? To make gambling safer from making my activity responsible on my own. Pieter?
Yeah, well honestly, I would like to give it a different turn, so to say. So I have a quote of Shakespeare, William Shakespeare. And he had this theater play with Romeo and Julieta. And at a certain moment, Julieta says, Romeo, perché sei tu Romeo? And in fact, it's about that which we call a rose would by any means smell as sweet if we gave it another name, so to say. So in fact what Shakespeare says, the naming of things is irrelevant. It's about the issue that we are talking about, so to say. And at the very same time, and I don't know if you have read the news, but I read that Mark Griffith, Michael Auer and Nathan Rikias have developed a new instrument to measure problem gambling, so to say, focusing on the behaviors. And if you check those things, we have something like more than 30 screening instruments nowadays already to try to define and to explain to us what the problem looks like. I was in Germany half a year ago and they had a list of more than 60 different screening instruments. So maybe I should just go back to '93 when I had a question to researchers in a room saying, can you give me one definition of what we are talking about?
But would you say, I mean, you're saying that the language doesn't matter, but what about when we talk to consumers? Is there a difference in what language we use when talking to the players, especially those vulnerable players? Shouldn't there be a consideration, maybe evolution of how we consider, how we think about the language we use while interacting with vulnerable players?
Well, honestly, it's a matter of choice, so to say, and that's how it started in the UK to use the term safer gambling, so to say. I mean, that's what we know from the American Gaming Association because they call it gaming and responsible gaming, while honestly that was my first thought as well years ago, but we changed over time, so we call it responsible gambling. But it's more about the attitude that you have towards the player and not the way we frame and use the right wording.
Okay. Let's move on then. Indeed, you brought the attitudes. Let's talk about whose responsibility it is then to raise standards and to drive the industry's approach to responsible gambling, safer gambling, sustainable gambling. Who should drive this really? And I'm gonna go to you, Francesco, not only because you have the microphone, but I want to bring that industry perspective first, perhaps.
So, if we look at what has happened until now, the truth is that these kind of like effort was mainly from the regulator, right? The industry was way too slow in adopting this. But the industry now is understanding that this point of the responsible gaming is essential also in a market perspective and as a marketing advantage and a market positioning. I mean, it is not just something that you are doing for the sake of the player, which is the most important part, obviously, but it's also a way to enhance your proposition because now, you know, we are in a world where a lot of products are very standardized, are very similar. Where you make the difference is in the service, is in the environment, it is in the attention to the player. And being attentive to the player, being attentive to his health, to his granting a safe environment, an environment where he can be entertained, but being safe and feeling to be safe is as crucial as having a good product and good games and stuff like that. Is on that part that you can make a real difference and attract players and win the competition. So I think that the question was who should do that. And I think that now the industry is understanding is in their own interest other than in the player's interest.
Because it makes business sense. Because,
also,
because
yes.
there is a commercial proposition behind being
it is
a more
both,
responsible
yes, exactly.
operator.
Because there is an ethical, which is the primary, but also can be done in a commercial, viable way.
Okay. Stefano, is that what you're seeing as well as you talk to operators, as you work with different operators and kind of deliver solutions to them?
Yeah,
And maybe you can give us some examples, if possible. I appreciate it's competitively sensitive sometimes.
yes, exactly. So there are different approach to this from an operator perspective. So there are operators that use this as a pure way to, let's say, rebrand, or others that use this topic as a real effective way to approach players. Anyway, it is used as it's a useful way because it creates a positive environment to talk about this topic, and the player feels less stressed in being chased around this. So it's not a health condition, it's something that we can discuss as a positive way to create a right environment. And from, let's say, a content perspective, can create a revenue stream because it's something that help the player to budget better the entertainment budget that they are planning to put in for their month, for example. Yeah, it's a work that needs to come from two sides because it's the only way where we can create let's say a gambling industry or a gaming industry where is not the regulator just saying a total no on everything, but also a way to work together and make money together.
Okay, and hold on one second. Can I just then ask, okay, can we envision then that regulators in markets where there's no regulation, gray markets, suddenly, the operators operating in those gray markets will therefore, since we're talking it's a commercial proposition, it makes business sense, that therefore they would also, raise those standards and implement those solutions as well that we're talking about here. Can we envision that world?
Well, in my opinion, from a content perspective, it's possible because engaging the player with a more fun and social content means that the player stays more on the casino, and at the same time budget better what it wants to spend. So I think it's still not enough in that sense, but it's probably the only thing that makes sense also in that
Francesco.
market.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I'm not as optimistic as Francesco when it comes to raising standards. Hoping that the industry will take the lead. I'm not sure it's happening yet. There's a very simple. I'm not judging, but there's a very simple reason. It's called competition. So operators. In Italy, we have 80 licensees. There's hundreds in the UK. They all fight for market shares. They spend all their efforts into marketing. Look at the US, where there's new markets and there are gazillions spent in marketing, way less in responsible gambling. It can't be. We are not focused because we are competing in trying to raise the standards for responsible gambling. That's why it's very important the role of regulators. But there's a big risk though. When regulators, especially not just the regulators, because the rules at the end are decided by the political level, but when they step in, they need a quick win to fill the gap to respond to the concerns of the public opinion. It can be harsh. Italy again, gambling, advertising ban. Netherlands, one of the largest markets in Europe, 2 days ago, a motion in the parliament to ban online slots, which are like 70% of the market. That would be a disaster. It won't help protecting players because it will move back to offshore, and it will be a lose-lose situation. That's why it's very complicated. That's why we should make an effort from the industry side to start cooperating, sharing our findings, and give some credible alternatives to regulators. Otherwise, they will just crush us. But I'm not seeing that happening yet.
Yeah, and totally. I think maybe, I live in a kind of world, too optimistic, I don't know, but I guess, what I'm trying to envision here is that this approach is part of being competitive, right? So while while you were talking about, it's a competitive market, and therefore, right, like you sometimes, you might not have the interest in driving those changes, but actually what I'm talking about, that this actually helps you be more competitive, which again, I appreciate, right? Like it's early days, and I don't know when we're gonna get there. Peter, you wanted to comment as well.
I want to make one promise to Francesco. I mean, this motion which was accepted in Parliament is not going to be carried out. Because at the end of the day, it's the Minister of Justice that has to make a decision, and at this very moment we are forming a new government, so this government will never make the decision to do it or not. But you are right, if they do, you really have a problem, so to say. But getting back to your main question, saying the industry, they are not the most proactive part in this whole discussion, so to say, to put it in a polite way. It's still a minority that is taking care of all these responsible, sustainable actions, so to say. I think regulators are in place, number two, but maybe it's all based on what academics say regarding the problems that we see happening, so to say. Though at the very same time, as I mentioned before, I would like to see academics focus more on the 98% that doesn't have a problem with gambling than on the 2% that do have a problem with gambling. So all these regulatory developments, and that's what you just so see, limit setting, advertising ban. In Belgium they have set up the raise the minimum age to 21 at this very moment. It could be really happening that you see the same things in other countries. So in fact, it's the academics supported, I would say, by political developments that make regulators set more limits. But the industry is in the last position, I would say. Unfortunately, because I mean, I would be very much in favor if we have more industry that really takes it serious. By the way, there is a difference between different countries. And I'm not so pessimistic about Italy, to be honest. And I know a lot of companies, but there are other countries in which I still think nothing's happening.
Go for it, Francesco.
Just to reply to Francesco for 1 second, the reason why I'm a little bit more optimistic maybe is because I'm on the commercial side, so I'm talking daily with the companies, so I'm seeing the reception and the interest. I will not have expected this kind of reception and interest in our product a while ago. Obviously, there is a big impact of what the regulator did in Italy, because they introduced rules that will be adopted with the new regulation that push hard in the way of protecting the players. But I've seen a lot of companies interested even before, because we started to talk about this before the rule were there. And there was interest also before that. So that's why I'm optimistic.
I guess, it's reassuring that we are seeing the actions that are preempting, perhaps, right, at this stage, some of those regulations, instead of operators just being caught off guard, as it's been happening. I think UK is very much an example of where operators are just like totally, being subject to that pressure coming from regulations, but at the same time, really, standing in the positive sense of like developing really solutions and actions. Stefano, just staying on you, because we're having a little bit of a debate, I suppose, here on would you be comfortable leaving it then to the industry, or you think there is a need for some regulatory mandate then?
I mean, it's always something done from the two sides. If the result needs to be a positive outcome, not only for the players but also for the industry, it needs to be some sort of consultation. Otherwise, it's just a blockage, and it creates disruptions on businesses, and it doesn't work.
Okay, cool. Are there any questions from the floor? I think we have 5 minutes left. It'd be great to add some comments or opinions from our audience.
Just a quick follow-up. When I say I'm pessimistic, I'm generalizing a little bit. I'm thinking at a global level, there's still not enough push. But then there are some promising signs. Partly which are genuine, partly because there's some regulatory push. There's now 20 countries that have some wording about the use of behavioral analytics to analyze player risk, which is a new concept. So it's emerging. Italy is the first country in the world, I think, that put the expression artificial intelligence in the law as a way to improve the responsible gambling practices. There are interesting individual initiatives. We saw CISL first. I have my colleagues Osna here. We really brainstorm a lot now to try to improve things. But these can't be individual initiatives. It should be something that the industry has a joint effort. Because if we have a company that's good in doing stuff and all the others are not, the general impression and the regulatory reaction will be bad anyway. So we are on the right track, finally, but still there's a lot to do.
Yeah, I think not to worry. I think this whole panel, just generally has a very optimistic tone. I think with this kind of view of trust and hope for the industry going in the right direction. But speaking of kind of the cooperation and, we talked about that it's still not necessarily a widespread standard. What can really be done for you talked about the competitiveness amongst the companies. How do you achieve some level of cooperation or some level of promotion of those standards so that it is adopted by more countries, more companies? Pieter, you work across the globe. What are you seeing? Have you seen any kind of best practice that we could learn from when it comes to being able to engage at a kind of cross-company level?
You have a lot of questions at the very same time. That's what you realize. Of course, I see positive developments, definitely, for sure, not a problem. And I do see a role of AI, and I agree that Italy is by far the front runner at this very moment regarding the implementation of AI. And I'm not pessimistic, but I always think there are more opportunities and more possibilities that we should work on. So AI is part of it. But at the very same time, for me it means that there has to be human interaction between someone who's observing and someone who has a problem. As an example, and maybe that's what we should change in the future, we talk a lot about self-exclusion. And we talk a lot about self-exclusion these days when we think that someone has a problem. So you are this operator and you say, I think you have a problem. You know what you should do? You should exclude yourself. Self-exclusion originally was a preventive measure in a way of take a deep breath, stop for the moment, and keep on going with the things that you are doing. What I hear from organizations like REF, Gaming Regulators European Forum, is that they not only talk to each other and exchange information, but there's also kind of common view, so to say, or a view of the group itself, which is coming up, and I think that's a good one.
Yeah, but that's regulators, right? And how do we get also operators and kind of people on the industry side to cross borders?
One thing is then you need your branch organizations here in Europe, like the European Casino Association, or EGBA, or the European lotteries that could do something, and they all have formulated responsible gambling standards and frameworks, so to say, but they are limited to a certain extent because of the position of certain countries where they are not that far as some of the others are.
Maybe I can add a different point of view. It's not what I've said, I've seen, but is what I will see. I'm pretty sure of what will happen and how this will become a topic. There will be some companies who will move from the standard communication or the standard advertising, where advertising is possible, and standard positioning to a positioning that is centered on the user, on his safety, on his on their product being safe and entertaining. When the first companies will do this and will start to gain new user and market share, etc., then this will lead the others, who are the followers, who are slower and who are slow to understand, to try to, copy. And this will bring more and more companies, because this will become a standard. And this is the new standard. This is coming.
So yeah, we're back, I suppose, to the commercial driver, right? And competitor, this becoming just really a competitive play. But in the meantime, I guess we need the regulators. And they're just being traumatized by the 2 zeros here in front of me. I'm going to close this session. Thank you so much for participating. Thank you for being here with us. And have a lovely afternoon, Friday afternoon in Rome.
Thank you.